is going to be both of our champions for the week. Normally we each were going to pick one, but I think we're just going to go all out this week and talk about him considerably because we had some requests from viewers, and basically he's one of the champions that's free this week, so it all works out pretty well.
Yeah, he's definitely been flavor of the month for at least a month, if not almost two at this point, and everyone seems to have an opinion on Heimer. So, and we certainly got tons of questions.
Yeah, and we have our own opinions as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, you want to start off? I have to go. I'll be back in like 2 minutes. I have to go do something. I know this is totally not professional, but yeah, you want to start off on Heimer?
Yeah, absolutely. So, everyone knows that I love Heimer because he is the sexiest man alive. I mean, the Old Spice dude has nothing on Heimer, and everyone knows this. You know, it's the fro, I don't know, even when it's exploded. Hell, when it's exploded, he looks even better than he does normally. That's my favorite skin. And, yeah, so a lot of people hate on Heimer, and the reason is he's sort of hard to counter conventionally because of his turrets. It really seems to complicate things, and then people get confused. Do I attack the turrets? Do I leave them alone? And then when he is able to approach your towers, he's able to do so much damage to a tower. And the thing that makes Heimer feel kind of overpowered, you'll get in a lot of situations where you're in a game, and let's say you're winning like 20-10, and you're like, yeah, we've got this game, we're so far ahead. But the other team has a Heimer, and all of a sudden they start pushing and pushing and pushing, and they win. And you're like, well, it's because Heimer's overpowered. Well, I think one of the issues with that is Heimer, he sort of has a deceptive score. Heimer doesn't generally tend to get a lot of kills himself, so... And early on, when you're not team fighting, he's not really going to be able to help out with a gank or something like that. So the team with a Heimer is going to have an artificially low kill score. But where his strength is, of course, is with pushing. So even though his team will be behind on kills, you guys may still be on even footing. So, yeah, the reason we picked him to be free, or to talk about him this week, is because he is free, and everyone has an opinion on him. When we were playing ranked games, I remember Heimer would get banned all the time. But the point of talking about Heimer in the free this week section is to talk about him from the point of view of a noob, because they're the ones who are going to be using the free champions. So, let's say you want to try out Heimerdigger, what kind of build should you go with? How do you put him together? And I think that there are two general ways to build Heimer, which is sort of an AP/tank hybrid. Well, I mean, he's not really a tank, but, you know, a tanky high hit point build, and then a much more squishy straight AP build. And I'm going to be talking about the straight AP build, which does tons of damage and relies very heavily on his micro rockets. All right. I'm a big fan of Heimer's grenades for taking out turrets, but the fact is his micro rockets can do tons of damage to champions, especially if you're stacking straight AP. I think we've all suffered the wrath of those things. They've got crazy range, they go off instantly.
Sometimes they can deal deceptive deceptive amounts of damage to you, and it's like, holy crap, Heimer is dealing so much damage with those rockets.
Yeah, I don't know how many people who are listening remember the old Heimer rockets, which were even worse because they had a slightly...
They only targeted champions?
Yeah, they only targeted champions, and if you were the only champion within range, all three rockets would hit you. It was sick. They could burst, they could do well over 1,000 points of damage easily, with a single press of a button without needing to aim, and from a range farther than you can possibly hit back.
Yeah.
So now they can't do that. They will hit minions, and you can't be hit by more than one rocket. Although they have a much shorter cooldown now, and I think they're lower in mana cost. And they're still range.
And they also have a shorter range too, though. Didn't they used to have 1,200 though?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
They had 1,200. They nerfed them to 1,100, and then when the big Heimer change went through, they brought them down to 1,000. But they still, at max rank, they still do almost 300 points of damage base, and you get an extra half point of damage per ability power. So if you're going with a crazy straight AP build that can stack a little over 900 AP, you're talking about a rocket that's hitting for like 750.
Yep. Which is quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. So to get to the point of the specific build here, the easiest way to go with this super duper crazy hardcore AP build.
Do you want to talk about our math that we did earlier here in this instance?
Yeah.
Or do you want to do that later?
Let's talk about it after. We'll introduce the basic builds, and then we'll go into the math here. But what can definitely work is just stacking crazy amounts of Archangel staffs. Very easy thing to do. Very first thing you want to do is build one tier of the goddess. Then you might want to get your boots. You might not. It depends. Heimer doesn't need a ton of mobility. Finish your Archangel staff, and then just keep building them. Once you've got like 3 Archangel staffs, get a Zonyo's ring, and then get another Archangel staff. And literally, you will stack so much AP with that. You'll have a very deep mana pool, and you will you'll do lots of damage.
Wreck?
What's that?
I said you'll pretty much wreck them with every spell that you cast.
Yeah, absolutely. The 4 staff plus 1 ring build will give you about 976 AP. And that's without counting any runes, any masteries. Just starting from 0, that's what you'll end up with. And that is a sick, sick number.
Yeah. I mean, for those of you who don't know, it obviously, everyone should know, but it adds damage to his turrets as well, so it makes them quite ridiculous to approach. So, I mean, I guess I'll just talk about my build now real quick before we go into our AP discussion, which we just quickly mentioned there. For AP tank, I use Rod of Ages, which is not really the same build, but I generally like to go Rod of Eight, my build is usually a Dorian's Ring and a potion, and then into Rod of Ages as quickly as possible. Like he said, I don't think you really need boots that early with Heimerdinger. I like to focus on turrets and use them. You get the placement of turrets is what sets apart, I think, the poor Heimers from the good Heimers, and it's really subtle. Like the difference between a good placement and a bad placement could be, just one circle over. Like the range of the turret, even like 100, distance on the game can make a huge difference on how effective one turret is, because of area of effect spells and the range of champions where the minions are getting into battle and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you ever fight against a Morgana, you'll have to become extraordinarily aware of turret placement and how important that is.
And her tormented soil. So, beyond that, I like to get Rylai's, which is pretty good with grenades and rockets. I'm pretty sure if you hit them on the fringes of the grenade, it'll still slow them. So they'll, instead of if you don't need a direct hit to slow them or get some crowd control on the team, and rockets with slow is pretty annoying as well.
Very powerful.
And beyond that, I just like to get, for the most part, more Rod of Ages or go more into a heavy AP build, depending on what they have. You can also go Guardian Angel, because I'm about 95% sure if you die with Guardian Angel and you have turrets around, the turrets will not die when you die the first time and become revived from Guardian Angel. The turrets will still stay, so you can catch a lot of people who are unaware of that off guard.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I actually... go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I got not much else to say.
Personally, when I actually play Heimer myself, my build is Doran's Ring into Archangel Staff into Riley's Scepter, because that Riley's Scepter really is something I miss when I don't have it. And it's hard. It's really hard, because when you do have the heavy AP build, you can go the crazy rocket build and wreck a lot of damage, but I'm a big fan of the survivability on Heimer.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for the most part, I prefer the survivability, because in between the grenades, if you have good grenade placement, you can really just keep him alive for so long with the stun, and just placing down towers, using your ultimate, or placing down turrets, and you can make it to towers pretty easily against 1 or 2 champions even. So,
yeah, one thing.
Go ahead.
One thing you can do with Heimer is because his micro rockets really help you get assists if there is any kind of fighting going on. A Mijay Soul Stealer really can max out extraordinarily quickly on Heimer, especially since he is kind of tough to kill. So that can be your major source of AP right there. Even if you're not going an AP build, you can go sort of tanky plus Mijays, and then you won't die in a fight. You'll get lots of assists, and then eventually you'll get lots of AP and start getting the kills too.
So let's actually jump ahead real quick, but stay on the same topic, and let's cover. Looks like NoCat88 asks, what are ways to counter frequently complained about champions? He'll use Heimer, for example, because Quill knows him well. I also know how to play him relatively well. But what do you think are some ways to counter him? I know a couple ways that I like to use, but we'll see what you like to use.
I think the number one thing is to be able to keep his turrets down. So you've got champions like Morgana and Nasus who can just drop an AoE, hopefully still hit creeps and hit his turrets, and that is a really, really good way to knock him down. The other thing, the one that annoys me so much, is Teemo. And the fact that his poison does affect turrets. So, just tag a turret with the poison, back off. When the poison wears off, hit him again. Tristana's good too because she can easily outrange them. I believe Ashe can outrange them.
So I don't think Ashe... Well, Ashe can do it with volley, but I don't think she can do it with auto attacks.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I 600 range is farther than turrets? I think they have 600.
I thought there was a game once where I got outranged, but I may be remembering it wrong.
It might be possible. You should probably know this.
Oh, they have 500 range.
Do they?
Yeah, so Ashe definitely... So anyone with a range above 500 will outrange the turrets and can pick away at them.
Oh, damn. Okay, well, that's even more brutal. One champion I know that for sure, in my opinion, is like almost a hard counter to Heimer is Vlad. Once Vlad reaches like... Generally, even level 6, if you're playing against not a perfect Heimer or a really smart Heimer, you can just, like, if you've harassed them at all with the Q, you place down an ultimate, you use the Q, and you use the pool to dodge all of his turrets, which is, like, one of his main sources of defense and offense, and then he's just in so much trouble, because by the time you come out of the pool, your Q is, like, back up. And, I mean, Vlad, in my opinion, is, like, a hard counter to Heimer. Once he gets his Q to level 5, it's got, like, a 2-second cooldown, and it 2-shots his turrets. And it's extremely difficult for Heimer to be able to keep up with that type of lifesteal as well. Even if Heimer has good grenades and rockets, the Vlad is still, relatively able to keep up with the damage.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say one thing that is not a counter to Heimer, and that is crowd control. A lot of times champions with a stun are exceptionally good at getting ganks off or protecting themselves from a champion, but because so much of Heimer's damage comes from his turrets, getting a stun on him won't help.
Yeah, it's like stunning him is like only stunning like 33% of his damage.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of, you blinded him. It's like great. It's not really that effective.
Yeah.
He still has turrets around to deal with the damage for him.
Right. So I guess the biggest thing is if you're going to try to get a gank on Heimer, you really have to know exactly where his turrets are and try to avoid them. And
burst damage works really well on him as well.
Yeah.
Because you got to kill. Like you can't stand in an engaged fight with Heimer around his turrets. Like, if you can push him away from his turrets with, like, a strong AoE or something and then try to engage him, that will work. But you just can't engage him around his turrets or, like, in a fortified position, I think, is the main thing.
Yeah, and I'll understand the turret mechanic as well. What they'll do is they'll target the closest thing all the time, and they don't have a preference for creeps or champions. So as long as you can keep that in mind, a lot of times you can avoid some of the damage that the turrets can dish out, and you can safely engage Heimer.
Yeah. Well, that's about all I have to say about Heimer. I'm sure people want to hear more, but we could probably do that at a different time.
Yeah, we've kind of beat that into the ground.
Yeah. So let's just move on to items of the week, and this week we are going to be covering the Dorian's items. So I guess I'll start off because Quill's been leading the way because I've been a poor host here and I've been AFK for some of this, but we'll start off. I'm just doing them in alphabetical order, and I'll just start off with the Dorian's Blade, which is personally my least favorite.
I agree.
It gives you 120 health, 6 damage, and 4% lifesteal. Now that's an okay item for people who have a DPS champion, but you need to think about it in terms of this. Like most champions start with we'll say a base of 50 damage, which is, I think, about fair for an average. So, 4% of that is, 2?
Yeah.
It's like, you're gonna get 2, and your attack speed in the beginning of the game is about, between 0.5 to 0.8 usually, unless you're buying an attack speed item. So that's gonna get you, 2 health every second or so, if you're attacking non-stop. And a little bit more damage, whereas an item such as the Dorian Shield will give you 120 health, same health. It'll give you 8 armor, which will protect you from those minion blasts, which are inevitable early game, and everyone is using auto attacks to do kills early game as well. They're a pretty large factor in the beginning of the game, even for champions, such as like Morgana or Annie. Like the 40 damage 3 times when you only have 600 hit points matters a lot, and the armor is going to help against that. And the health regen is the main thing that I think is a lot better than lifesteal. 8 health regen per 5 is about